Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Security Squawk podcast, your weekly dive into the world of cybersecurity. I'm Brian Horning, joined by my fellow cybersecurity experts, Reginald, Andre, and Randy. Brian, how is it going, gentlemen?
Pretty good. And yourself?
Doing well. Doing well. Starting to get a little warmer here, so my bones aren't as cold as they were the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
I think it got down to 70 in Florida. I think Andre said he was catching a cold. It was so cold.
Yeah. I had to turn on the heater for the first time in 4 years.
Wow. Getting used to it. So, guys, each week we put on the show where we're here to break down the latest in cyber events, making headlines, and provide our audience with practical insights to keep them and their data safe. In today's episode, we're going to tackle some major cybersecurity incidents that have been ruffling the feathers in the cyber world over the last 7 days. And one of those is a massive UnitedHealth's data breach that's affected a staggering 190 million Americans. This is a revision from what they previously thought. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this, so we're going to dive into that. Microsoft is dealing with this whole new Teams. They probably watched our podcast last week and were like, oh, we got to do something about this. But in unprecedented fashion, Microsoft is actually doing something about the phishing Teams, the Teams phishing attack that we brought up on the show the last couple of weeks. We also have a ransomware attack causing a major disruptions and chaos at a Maryland hospital that we'll get you up to date on. And Microsoft, again, is coming to the rescue with with their browser Edge. And when you get those pesky tech support scans that pop up in the little corner of your screen, they're going to start actually doing something about that too. So we'll fill you in on that. And the fallout from a costly ransomware attack at Ohio County, that's Wood County up in Ohio. We'll let you know what happened there and why we think it's interesting what the response was to their ransomware payment. So stick around. We're going to crack some cyber nuts here and help you navigate the cybersecurity. Remember, in the digital jungle, knowledge is your best defense. So here we go, guys.
Caught me off guard on that one.
Yeah.
I can't believe you've laughed on that one.
Yeah, I normally don't laugh at jokes.
I don't think I've ever made you laugh in 4 years.
Yeah.
So guys, 190 million, UnitedHealthcare. This is becoming a bigger deal by the day. This is the Change Healthcare breach, right? And obviously UnitedHealthcare is the parent company of that. And they basically said that it was 100 million people when they filed their report to the Health and Human Services for Civil Rights. And they've now confirmed as of Friday that figure has doubled to 190 million. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, let's remember how all this happened. This could have been prevented if they just had two-form factor authentication turned on their Citrix, on one of their servers, basically. So this was like a very simple way of protecting these, patients' clients, and they didn't have that on. So it was totally preventable.
Yeah, because it was basically credential stuffing, where they take usernames and passwords and use that to log in. It's kind of how they got their initial access. And like Andre said, MFA could have been a game changer there. Also being aware of, funky logins from unknown devices, funky logins from unknown areas, funky logins from VPNs. Like, it started really small, which is, kind of makes you angry, and it's humbling at the same time, because this turned out to affect like literally over are roughly 1 in 2 Americans, right? So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and the sad thing about it is, United Healthcare, they paid the $22 million ransom. So they were trying to say, look, all right, we're going to try to protect our clients so this doesn't get released. And it turns out that doing business with the bad guys didn't turn out good, because then the head ransomware group basically took the $22 million and ran.
And still leaked the data.
Right.
Yeah, so they did pay. They paid to get their systems and their data unencrypted. So they paid for like an unencryption key. And then they also, the other part of the payment was so they wouldn't release the data. And they went and released the data. So, like you said, shocker that criminals wouldn't be honest. But the reality though about that is, if they do this too much, people aren't going to pay the money, because there's people that have backups that could restore systems that could say, well, I'm paying the money so the money doesn't get released. If they're going to keep taking payments and releasing money, taking payments and releasing data, maybe people are going to stop paying them. You know what I mean? So
be nice, but probably not.
Yeah, ain't going to happen until it's legal.
Practical. And plus, we don't know the true story, right? We don't know if they could have recovered from backups. They may have needed the key to get back up. And if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about other situations when people can use backups to recover. And
we don't know, right? But the data release may not even have been on the table at that point. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know where the negotiation was in that stage. That's just one tactic that they use, not necessarily used in every case, right? If they know they got your data and you the only way you back up is through their recovery key, they're not going to offer that second step, because that's usually what they do is they're like, oh, you have backups and pay us or we're going to release this data.
Right.
So, it's probably one of those things where UnitedHealthcare needed a little bit of help to get things back up and running, and the release of the data was inevitable.
Yep.
So, why do you think it took them so long?
Took so long
to figure out the 190 million. What's that?
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. Maybe because of reporting deadlines that forced them to do that. Maybe they dragged their feet because it is pretty humiliating to have such a large data breach. Maybe. I'm not sure, man.
I mean,
it is huge.
I mean, it depends on a lot of things, right? You're probably right on a lot of things you hit on. It could be that just the telemetry they had, it took the forensic investigators a little longer, right? Coupled with the fact that you might need to file something by a certain date. So you file what you know at the time, right? So if at the time you thought it was 100 and you've learned now it's double that, that plays out all the time. And not only that, we are seeing these compliance deadlines being used by the cyber criminals in their negotiation. So if they know you need to report or file something by a certain date, they're like, hey, look, you better start working with us before this date, or we're going to go to the government, or we're going to go to whoever and tell them that you're going through this event. And, and we're going to do it the day after you were supposed to report on it. So those are definitely things that come into play when you're talking about negotiating with cyber criminals when these events happen. So I just thought it was interesting. It took them a few extra months to figure out that the impact is twice as many. And, that's indicative of how well you are prepared to deal with the event, which obviously they weren't very well prepared at all, because A, it happened, B, it took them a long time to get back up and running, and C, now you're seeing it's taking them a long time to figure out what even happened. Right? And again, there's a price tag associated with all this that they weren't expecting to pay as well, and it's not cheap.
Yeah, remember, this was also the time when their providers, like local doctors and hospital groups, they down in the sense of not being able to receive payment from them, the pharmacies and stuff. So they were just getting hit at all sides. A big hurricane just damaged them in that aspect.
Yep. Moving right along, guys. We got this whole Teams external phishing attack, the old IT support trick that people were falling for, where several organizations over the last couple of months have become victim of this attack. And I say in unusual fashion, Microsoft has decided to actually do something about it. So, Andre, what are they going to do?
Yeah, so just to recap, there has been a big problem where hackers are basically contacting your employees via Microsoft Teams, and everybody thinks about phishing and phone calls that are scams, but usually if something comes through Teams, your guards are a little down. And there's been cases and uprising as far as these hackers using this method. So right now, someone can team you by default, and it can just come right in, no warning message or whatever. And now Microsoft is now putting a box to say, hey, you may want to be careful. This person's outside your organization, et cetera. And just warning that user that, just be careful because this may be a third-party person that you don't know.
And they really ought to go one step farther, Brian, because okay, so a user who like 2 weeks into this is going to get so annoyed by that pop-up, but they ought to add a third layer where as an administrator, you could set it to where it's allow list only. It's easy to set. And then if a user needs a domain, they can request access to the domain, similar to how it is right now. Microsoft does this it's one of the settings for using enterprise apps. Like if you want to add the Adobe Sign app to your tenant, you can't just add it. There's a setting that makes it where you can't just add it. You got to get admin approval. So you fill it out and you hit enter, and then a note gets sent to the admin, and then they approve it. That's really what they ought to do here. They ought to at least have that option, because the users are going to just get sick of this. Because you have to remember, the users, they're not out to 99.99% of the time, they're not out to bring down the company. They just want to get their dang work done. And they get annoyed by these little pop-ups and things they have to do and all that kind of jazz. So we ought to make it I personally think we ought to have another option here to, set it to zero trust, which already is there, and then get approval from an admin to add a new domain. And then they could catch that.
But we always talk about, the convenience factor, but similar to what you're saying, because now when you get an email, for the most part, it's going to say this email is outside of your organization, or this is you've never gotten an email from this person. But how many phone calls do we still get that even with those warnings, the user still clicks on it?
Yep. Yeah, because they're so ubiquitous at one point, you just ignore them all, or you get 10 of them from people that you've been emailing since, 1998. They still have notifications on the top. You've never heard from this person before because maybe that feature was just turned on. And then, after like 10 of those, the people just start ignoring them. And they're like, just get out of my way. But,
I know I'm picking on the user, but Brian, let me ask you a question. You were in the Navy or a sub for the Navy or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No answer. Yes or no. Got it. So yes. Okay. So is there anything that one person could take down a ship? Like, can one person take down the ship, or are there control measures?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard.
No, but where I'm going with this is there's got to be a way for this technology to be that same thing where that one Citrus 2FA can't just take down an entire UnitedHealthcare.
Oh, you mean like CrowdStrike?
Yeah, something like that as well.
I mean, right. I mean, well, I think that goes along with, again, we're dealing with, and look, this is going to repeat itself over and over. So what I'm about to say applies to any new technology that's coming in the future as well. We're 26 years into businesses using the internet in their businesses. It sounds like a long time, but at the end of the day, it's really not a long time. And we're still figuring this crap out and how to do it the right way. So at the end of the day, that's what we're living in. We're changing the tires as the car's rolling down the road with this stuff a lot of times. And as we roll out new technology, we learn, oh, that's not a great way. I guess my thing is with this whole thing, and the next thing we're going to talk about, we might as well pull that one up now. Like these different things that Microsoft is now doing, and they're saying that they're going to use AI now to block these tech support scans from Edge browsers, right? And I guess it is like, do you trust these tools to do their job? And that's what I'm concerned about, because I asked you the same thing in the green room, Andre, is like, do you trust it? And your response was, it's Microsoft, of course, right? I mean, that's my fear, is that people start to do that with, these tools and start to put too much trust in what Microsoft is doing, because it's just not there to that point where you can trust them like that. Agree or disagree?
No, agree. And just going back to that ship example, so British Royal Navy started in 1546. So we're talking over 400 years of perfecting, making sure that one person can't just ship the sink. And like you said, 25 years into it, so we're still
that just like literally all opens up a gigantic can of worms, because you're right, Brian. We are only like 25-ish, or at the most 50 years into a lot of this stuff, and people aren't really looking at what is it going to take my business to bring the whole solution. You know what I mean? And the whole solution, and what I mean by that is hardening my business where it can resist the overwhelming majority of cybersecurity attacks, or turn them into a blip. And we're just, instead of a breach that ends the whole company, and we're just so far behind the curve on this right now. I mean, I know we talk about that literally like every other show it's brought up, but we're just so far behind the curve. It's a little disturbing to me from that perspective.
Well, this scareware blocker is actually pretty cool. So it's an AI-powered scareware blocker, and basically what it does is it uses this like AI vision stuff that they're calling it, and it compares what it's seeing on the page to whatever's in its database. So it could be thousands, tens of thousands, and millions of these fake websites. And if it's like, hey, that looks a lot like a fake website, I'm going to block it. That's what this scareware blocker that's going to start showing up in Windows does for end users. Interesting, very interesting, because I know here at Exact, our help desk gets quite a number of tickets throughout the year from people who are like, hey, I've been hacked. I got these pop-ups on my screen, right? So what I'm saying by that is they got to contact a support person, an IT person, to help them get rid of these things. And this could be very beneficial to companies like ours, where we don't have to deal with this stuff anymore if this actually works. Again, big if there, if it actually works, and if they don't find a way around it.
Yes, and that term, that word that you said, that we don't, I think I can't remember exactly what you just said, but it basically, you were saying that so we don't have to deal with it. But now look at the user end, it's going to be like, well, Microsoft is taking care of this for me, so why do I need you? Which we all know this is just the surface of what we do.
I mean, if I don't have to deal with one of those tickets ever again at my company, I'm very happy. I mean, nobody's going to fire us because of this. I mean, we're way more important than that. And nobody's going to think that all tech problems are solved because they have this AI feature.
And this is a really big scam genre, if you will. We see at least once a week somebody gets an email. It's a legit invoice, from PayPal, charging you for QuickBooks, and that takes you to like, there's a place where you can load a website or whatever, where you get tech support. It's just very, very common. And so it is good to see them doing something about it. Yeah. And I see it as a cat and mouse game. Like, I don't think it's going to put cybersecurity analysts out of a job. It's just another tool, you know, that offsets a big attack genre that's happening out there.
It's like the MO of these guys, when they put something like this out that prevents this, they just go figure out something else to exploit. You know what I mean? It's just they move on from this and they figure out something else.
But what do we always say usually with how hacks happen? Because of something that's legacy, something that wasn't updated. So
They
if you
don't
don't get the browser updated or whatever.
For that, the thing we're talking about right now, you actually have to go in and turn it on manually.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're in a corporate environment where IT can just do it, but
Right.
you know, home users are going to have to go in and toggle it on.
Right. Yeah. Which they won't.
I'm sure they'll get nice little, hey, turn this on, new feature, hopefully.
And then, of course, on the bottom, if you're sure about this, because the tech guy is telling you on the phone, oh, yeah, just click that button to ignore it.
Exactly.
Ignore it.
All right, not so great news, guys. We have the Frederick News reporting that the Frederick Health Hospital systems were taken offline yesterday, due to a ransomware attack, and ambulances are being diverted to take patients to other emergency departments. Frederick Health's facilities were still open and providing care to patients, with some delays, according to a statement from the organization. Early Monday, the hospital said it had a mini disaster designation, which could be due to situations like a gas leak, fire, power outage, a bomb scare, according to the Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services Systems County and Hospital Alert Tracking System. As of Monday night, the hospital was still on both red and yellow alert. Red alert means there were no available beds for adult patient critical care, and yellow alert means the emergency has requested that it not receive new patients who need urgent medical care. According to a statement from Frederick Health spokesperson Josh Faust, they took its systems offline proactively after identifying a ransomware event. And the organization said it's working closely with their third-party cybersecurity experts to bring their systems back online as quickly and as safely as possible. Faust said that the hospital would still accept patients who are physically present in its emergency department. What does that mean? He could not comment if any data was compromised. And Frederick County spokesperson Vivian Laxton said yesterday that the county was notified that there was some sort of interference with Frederick's health communication system. Unfortunately, guys, this is another attack on critical infrastructure here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. What are your thoughts?
Every week. No, I was just going to say every week we're talking about a healthcare.
Yep.
True.
And
yeah,
where did you just read that they will accept people that show up? Because I read that they won't accept people that show up.
Maybe I misread it, but
okay.
The Faust said the hospital would still accept patients who are physically present in its emergency department.
Oh, okay. So early in the article, it says the emergency department reports that their facility has, in effect, ended operation.
Contradictory because they said that they can't serve a patient who is in critical care. But if you're not critical and you show up to the emergency department, they'll accept you. But if you're critical and you come in on an ambulance, they're telling the ambulance to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it still sucks. Can you imagine, a lot of smaller towns have one hospital or one regional hospital, and you don't have anywhere to take your emergency, car crash victims and stuff like that. That's disturbing.
Andre usually has his stats of the hospital size, the city size.
I was actually looking. I couldn't find it yet, but how many hospitals are there, and what's the percentage of hospitals getting hacked a week? But I couldn't find it. I was doing that in the background. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, let's just look at the population. It serves 85,793. There's probably a couple more hospitals.
Yeah, but this is this in which part of Maryland? Because you're talking far west. That is very, very rural. Oh, it's in North Central Maryland. So.
Oh yeah, it's like right south of Gettysburg, and it's not really near Baltimore or Washington. It's about 30, 40, 50 minutes, depending on traffic. Frederick Health seems to be the largest hospital. There's Calvert Health in Prince Frederick, Maryland. No, that's not even in the right area. So yeah,
It's pretty secluded.
It doesn't look like there's a lot of hospitals. I mean, there's some urgent cares. I'm just looking on a map.
Yeah.
There's some urgent cares, but some outpatient facilities, but no real big hospitals that I could see. So we'll keep you updated. That's not good. I mean, this is how these hospitals deal with it. I mean, their response doesn't seem to be that great to me either. You know, and contradictory statements, diverting patients.
Right.
It means that you weren't prepared. You weren't prepared to go to pen and paper and do this manually. So now you just got to shut down and tell people to go elsewhere. So we'll learn more on the heels of talking about what happened at UnitedHealthcare. These hospitals, when they get attacked, it can get really bad because if they get the patient information, it can get really ugly. So we'll keep everybody updated on what ends up becoming of this ransomware event that started yesterday. So any other thoughts on this, guys, before we move to our last topic of the day? Nope is the answer. So Ohio County IT director resigns after $1.5 million ransomware payment. And this happened in Wood County, Ohio, guys. And the guy worked there for 18 years and had to deal with a ransomware attack. We can get into the details of this, but it also paints a good picture of kind of where the world is heading when it comes to this stuff. One of the things I'll tell you in our business is we are doing a lot of audits for Department of Defense contractors for the purposes of CMMC, right? And one of the things these larger organizations are coming to grips with and realizing is that they're 1 and 2, 3-man IT departments. Look, you can run these systems with 1, 2, and 3 guys if they're completely wide open and they have access to everything. You don't need usernames and passwords to do things because they're open and unsecure systems. And when you have that, you don't need as many people to manage them because basically your users can do whatever they want on them, including install software, change settings, all kinds of stuff. And then when you start to go through a process with these companies of like, hey, you need to lock that down, you need to turn that on, you need to do this, you need to do that, you quickly have users that can no longer do what they used to do. And now they need help from an IT professional to get it done. So a lot of these defense contractors, guys, are coming to grips with the fact that they can no longer run their IT with the 2 or 3 guys that they've always run it with. And I think that that's what Ohio County has learned here, that they can't run their IT with the resources that they were able to do before this event. And, you know, like I said, either this is going to hit you through a cyber attack or this is going to hit you through laws and regulations. You're going to have to do something in 2025 because of one of those 2 things. It's going to make you move, especially if you own a business. It's going to make you do things and make you make decisions that you've never had to make before. And I kind of see it all one and the same. Like when a company goes through an event and they realize that the IT director that's been doing the job for 18 years is no longer a fit. It's that old adage, right? What gets you here won't get you there. And I think that that's what a lot of companies are going to learn here in 2025 is they aren't going to be able to run their IT like they used to if they want to play in this new world where you have to protect everything.
Yeah. And I know this article is not about the IT director, and we're not going to pick on the IT director, but if it was under your watch, 1.5 million, and you got the ability to resign and not be fired, that's interesting. And I guess someone got a nice parachute retirement so that way they can, make sure they got their pension or whatever that is. So that was very gracious of the city, I guess, right?
Yeah, considering that the prosecutor of the county said that they will never disclose to the public how they actually got the ransomware. So it makes
That's crazy. Where's the transparency on that? That means that it was most likely something so silly or something that they're just embarrassed about.
Right. And hopefully it didn't involve the IT director, or maybe they're trying to cover for somebody else. Who knows? But it's very interesting. The other thing, and why I alluded to what I was kind of talking about, is they decided to hire, it says it right here in the subheadline, they hired a consulting firm that provides chief information officer services to replace its outgoing IT director, a trend that we see kind of happening across the board as companies grapple with the fact that IT directors and CIOs and CISOs can cost you north of 150, 200K, depending on where you're at in the world. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of them if you really need a good one too, because like, look, there's guys out there that have these credentials that don't have a lot of experience or don't really know what they're doing at the end of the day. And just like any other job, you have to hire and figure out if they're any good. And sometimes you find out that they're not very good. So I just find it interesting that the county has decided to go outside. I think you guys kind of pointed out that it looks like they're retaining the IT staff. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Retaining the IT staff. They're just kind of getting rid of the guy at the top of the IT department and replacing that with an outside company. And I guess that person's going to oversee what the IT people are doing. Not a bad strategy if the company they hired knows what they're doing and can implement this stuff.
I mean, it does make a lot of sense. They have, I think you looked it up, 1,400 employees.
Okay. Yep.
And, you can talk cybersecurity all day long, but with 1,400 employees, you're going to have a lot of passwords needing reset and printers that don't work and all of that. And you said that, what got us here won't get us there. And this is really a perfect example of bringing in, I don't know anything about this IT company, but let's just talk generically, bringing in expert level help for that particular area, and then still retaining the staff who can, make sure you can see the printers and make sure things can get, just to do all the basic stuff. Right. So it is a really good strategy. I agree with that.
So we'll see. We'll keep everyone updated, but it's interesting to see this county go in that direction. You can only imagine that if other counties look at what Wood County is doing and they see success there, that they will follow suit. So if you're an IT director of a county, you might want to make sure that your stuff's buttoned up so you don't get called out on the carpet like this guy did, right? Get your risk assessments done, understand how and where you can get hacked, and clean it up. And don't let risky behavior happen on your network, because it sounds like that might have been what happened here.
So before you end it, so basically this company will provide the assistance to the city to give them the strategy and make sure it's implemented. And then the local on-hand guys are going to do it at about $8,000 a month.
Well, the company that's outside is charging $8,000 a month, right? Yeah. So they're charging $8,000 a month, which is essentially probably 50% of. I mean, it's Northwest Ohio, so you could probably get an IT director for about 100K, 120K, right? Maybe 150 with taxes. They're probably saving 50% on the salary, and they probably hopefully have a company that's maybe a little bit more up to things than maybe this IT director was. Because look, the guy was around for 18 years. I've been doing this for 20. Right. But I hold myself to a very high standard to maintain my knowledge and stay up on this stuff. I don't know this guy, and he may or may not have been doing that. But if he wasn't, kind of doesn't surprise me that they had to deal with ransomware. All right, guys. Any more thoughts?
No, I mean, the only thing I was going to say with that is, what I was trying to get at is that I guess at the beginning, it's going to need to be a lot of hands-on, but then maybe in 6 months or so, because 8,000 seems a little small to be able to manage that. But I guess if it's like you're kind of in a way to co-manage, right? But I can also see hierarchy issues in the sense of like you have the company telling the employees what to do. Now you got HR things like who's watching who. I mean, I know it's not our job to kind of dissect how.
I think it's a better move because it's a independent third party company who is essentially tasked with managing their IT.
Mm-hmm.
And if they, if the county people looked at it and said like, hey, this guy wasn't really managing our IT people well, and they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So let's bring in a company that's going to hold our people more accountable than this particular individual. As long as you get higher accountability as a result of it, I think it's a win.
Right. And the work is done. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that's clearly what I feel like is, if you read between the lines, that's what was lacking. There was a lack of accountability in the old guard that they hope to get with the new company.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your inputs here this week. Remember, help us grow the show by sharing it out with your friends and family on social media. If you're watching us right now, hit that little share button. Like wherever you're watching us, YouTube, you hit that like button. If you're on Facebook, you can like and comment. We appreciate all the support. It helps other people find this content and helps us grow the show. So we will see everyone same time, same place next week. Right, guys?
That's right. Yep.
All right, see you then. Take care. Stay
Bye,
safe.
y'all.